Yo, what's up, everyone? This is the Hack and Hustle podcast and the Hack and Hustle series on the Hack and Hustle podcast. This is the beginning. This is the pilot. This is the end all, be all. Is it? Let's jump right into it. Guys, in order to be successful nowadays, alright, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you want to be successful with women, you need to have a hustler mindset. You need to be willing to hack the system, and you essentially need to be willing to be a psychopath. Now, this isn't the old, adage games of, pretend to be a psychopath. Pretend to be a one. And I won't be a good example. I'm not going to respond to text. I'm not going to do all this stuff. But as soon as they come back, as soon as they give you the energy, boom, you switch, right? You flip. All of a sudden now, you're the nice guy. You're the what is it? You're the nice guy. You're the good guy. You're gonna bend over backwards for them. You're gonna buy them flowers and all this shit. Look, okay? I'm not saying anything here that I haven't done before. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I used to be a psychopath and a hustler myself. I did, okay? I still am a psychopath and a hustler. However, I used to be a simp. I used to be a white knight. I used to cry over women and bend over backwards for them and blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Nowadays, you are in a new paradigm. Look, you're living in a new paradigm, and you have to accept that in this new paradigm, you're gonna have to be a psychopath. You have to just not care about fucking women. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Let me turn up the volume a bit on this bad boy. Oh, volume's fully up. Okay, sounds good. So, if you want to be a psychopath with women, you have to genuinely just not care about them. All right, I'm talking the most extreme of the extreme psychopath with women. You see a woman getting beaten, raped, attacked, whatever. I mean, unless if she's related to you, unless if she's your mom or your sister or someone very close. If she's your coworker or something, and you need her to get shit done. You know what I'm saying? Well, then in that case, yeah. I mean, yeah, you might as well, right? I mean, yeah. You obviously need to protect her, right? But at that point, you're acting out of self-interest, and you're acting out of, family loyalty, right? It's part of your bloodline. Of course, you got to protect your family. I'm not saying don't do that. Now, of course, if your family has completely turned against you, and, they're just treating you like shit, and you never talk to them, haven't talked to them in 20 years, well, it's a little different. Okay, fine. You want to, be the cold senseless asshole, insensitive asshole. Go do it. Oh man. But in all honesty, guys, I'm gonna wipe this up. Oh wow, that's pretty good. Truth is, as sort of this hustler mindset. And I'm talking about the hustler mindset, right? Not this Andrew Tate shit where, a man's job is to protect a woman and to show her that he's the man, he's the boss, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, guys, but that is beta simp behavior. That is beta white knight behavior. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have much leverage and, there's nothing wrong with, buying things for a woman, paying for her. If you want to go the route of, hookers or escorts or, sex workers, as they call them these days, you can even do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're, not very attractive and you just don't really have the means of, getting ahead with women, then I mean, you might as well, right? You know, you want to spend $100, $200. I don't know how much it costs to spend, I don't know how much time with a woman to have sex with her or whatever. Whatever, you know, you might as well do it. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in paying for a woman. There's no shame in, you know, being with an unattractive woman, with a relatively unattractive woman. You know, there's this whole idea that, you know, she's got to be like a perfect 10 out of 10, and you shouldn't pay a dime for her. You're not a real player. You're not a real hustler. Blah, blah, blah. No. We're talking about something different. You, my friend, have to just not care about them. You have to get that into your mindset. You essentially have to just have this mentality of, you know what, you have to just kind of view them as you would other men. The only difference is that, you know, these other people, these female people, they have vaginas, they have tits, and they can get pregnant, give birth, and, you know, breastfeed babies. Now, obviously, men, I know men can lactate too if their, you know, hormones are a bit fucked up, but that's not what I'm talking about here, guys. Please. It's really freaking good. Anyways. About the hack mindset. The hack mindset pretty much states that, you know, you have to be willing to lie to and to manipulate women. You have to. You know, if she has nothing to do with you and she's not really part of your circle, oh shit, it's kind of loud here. All right, we are back to talking about the hack mindset. The hack mindset pretty much states that you have to be willing to manipulate them, to deceive them, to control them, to do whatever you got to do to get one over them. And I mean, obviously, if someone is part of your circle and, you know, you look out for each other, I mean, that's great. That's wonderful. That's great. That's amazing. I mean, to be honest with you, you as a man really shouldn't be having women in your circle to begin with, because ultimately, you know, these women do not think the same as men. You know, ultimately, you got to realize that, you know, even in the modern age, you know, most men, especially in the older generations, more so in the older generations, you know, men are the providers and the protectors. Men will provide for and protect women. So you got to realize that if you, as a guy that hustles or, you know, hacks or whatever, you might face some backlash. You might even face some violent backlash. I'm just saying, guys. I'm giving you the warning up front. Yes, you know, the vast majority of men out there do have the intention to protect women, to provide for them, and to ultimately, you know, sort of fight other men that may seek to be predators against them. I noticed that very quickly in the military. A lot of guys have this mindset. I don't mean to, you know, go on a bit of a talk here, but that's ultimately, a little bit of wind. That's ultimately what it's like, guys. I'm outside, so if I do have sudden pauses, it's because of noise outside, background noise. So, about the hack mindset. Well, I mean, first of all, you should be willing to biohack. There is nothing wrong with, you know, taking steroids or taking peptides or whatever, using artificial means of enhancing your body. Because whether directly or indirectly, whether consciously or subconsciously, women do look for indicators of good genetics. Even if you're paying her, even if you're like super rich and you're just buying stuff for her and paying for all her stuff, she is going to be more sexually attracted to you if you are genetically fit. Now, obviously, I know that a lot of you guys out there are not genetically fit. That is why we have technology. We have pharmakia. And this pharmakia, if you will, well, you're doing magic tricks on them. You are presenting an illusion. Yes, there is nothing wrong with taking peptides, taking steroids, getting various, if you want to go the more expensive route with certain treatments, you can do that. It's not pussy shit. It's not, weak ass beta shit. No, it is very alpha. So if it sounds like I'm talking about Sigma grind set here, then I guess I'm guilty as charged. I am guilty as charged. There's nothing wrong with being a Sigma male and doing Sigma grind set. There's nothing wrong with doing Sigma male grind set shit and being attracted to women. Look, if you want to go and have sex with beautiful women and you are willing to pay the price, or you are willing to jump through some hoops, then feel free to do so. However, it ultimately boils down to the mindset. The mindset is that you have to be willing to treat it like a transaction. Okay? And like I said about your inner circle, there's nothing wrong with having friends. You should have friends. You should have even some close friends. However, you have to realize that at the end of the day, most men out there do not have your mindset. The vast majority of men out there don't have the Sigma mindset. Most men, especially the older men, have a beta male mindset. Now, I know this trend is changing with the younger generations, even with a lot of millennials, and I know it does vary on race. I do notice that, let's just say, men of fairer complexions and more hirsute, with more body hair and facial hair and all that, including myself. Yes, I am of a fairer complexion, and I do have quite a bit of body and facial hair. Men with these traits tend to be more beta. They like to protect women and to provide for them. And to be honest with you, I don't completely blame us, because it's just, it's kind of how a lot of men are raised. They are raised to protect and to provide for women. It's almost instinctive to protect and to provide for women. However, you have to realize that women are the selectors. Not only are women the selectors of the species, by default, because a lot of women are performing this role. Most women perform the role of selector and carrier, and then most men perform the role of provider and protector. And so you got to realize that ultimately women will facilitate this selection through men. Men are the ones that are actually kind of, they are the muscle of selection. Because if not for other men, what's stopping, let's just be honest with each other, as men, what's stopping a random guy from just going up to a woman, grabbing her, and, doing some things with her that most of society would find socially unacceptable? There's not much. There's not much out there really, getting in the way. This drink is really good, by the way. It's a very simple recipe. Very, very simple recipe, but it's tasty. So, it ultimately boils down to mindset. So let's just give a quick summary of what this mindset entails. One is the hustler mindset. You have to essentially keep your circle small, right? That's the gist of it. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a circle. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having no circle at all. Just you, yourself, and what you have. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, as a, how do I say this? As a man, you have to realize that men are not as loyal as women by default. Men are just typically not. And most men aren't going to be like you. So, you know, you should have a circle. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a circle. Having a circle is good. Having a small circle is great. Having a small circle is optimal. The smaller your circle, the better. Because then you have a few loyal friends that you can fall back on when times are hard. However, you have to... Oh, I just burped there. That was pretty nasty. You have to be willing to accept that friends can turn on you very quickly. And even, you know, if, say, you just decide to surround yourself with Sigma males, with based men, you know, you have to accept that, you know, these based men can, and a lot of them will, eventually give in to give into love. Look, I've fallen in love before. I've turned against friends. I've done some pretty bad things. But you know what? I learned from it, and I got better. Because, you know, I lost my train of thought. Yes, having a circle is good. Having men in your life is good. However, you should try to avoid having women in your circle. Because ultimately, there is going to be a conflict of interest. If you have a woman in your circle, there is going to be. Right, you know, I know a lot of guys like to make fun. Oh, you know, you only have guy friends. You must be fucking gay, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing, right? You kind of have to be... You have to be a psychopath to women. No, I'm not saying you need to go out and just completely disregard people and not love them and, you know, just be a completely, like, cynical person and just have no emotions, which, mind you, is usually pretty false for psychopaths. Yes, psychopaths can, you know, they can show emotions. They can become upset, sad, react, get afraid, things of that nature. Yes, psychopaths can do that. However, when it comes to people, especially people of the opposite gender, you got to realize that at the end of the day, most of us are very, very transactional. That's what it comes down to, is we are a transactional species in a transactional world. And so, you know, that's kind of the synopsis of the mindset. The mindset boils down to, you have to accept the world as is. You have to think this world is transactional. Get rid of all the romance and the romanticize and the emotions and the fluff and the, you know, love and everything. Now, I'm not saying that you should hate people or that you should be cynical. No, I mean, you should love people. You should forgive them. but you should not get emotionally involved. And you also have to realize that most people are not like this. You are a minority, especially, if you compare to humanity as a whole. We live in a day and age where I think it was at least half, about almost half of the people in this world are older than me, and I'm about to be 32. So, there's a point of reference. You can't be like that. Number two, with the I guess the whole transactionalism in this life, you have to realize that a lot of people, most people, are just like that. Most people are like that, right? Especially when it comes to the opposite sex, right? Because ultimately, the provision and the protection isn't always necessarily, how do I say it? It's not always reciprocated. And second of all, you shouldn't care about what men think of you in regards to how you are with women. Whether you're nice to them, whether you're mean to them, whether you treat them like complete dog shit, whether you protect them, whether you don't protect them, whether you just use them, pay for them, to hump them and dump them, and if she's a 5 or she's a 4, or she's a 10 out of 10, or she's a 1 out of 10. You gotta stop caring about that, dude. Most of the guys out there, Sigma males are a very, very rare breed. I guess, yeah, for those of you that are old enough to, kind of fully know the phrase, you gotta put the bros before the hoes. The women come second, because, ultimately it comes down to, for the most part, men are the protectors and the providers, and women are the selectors. Now, I'm not saying that you don't completely completely disregard this role and you be aloof to it. No, you got to be aware that, yes, most men will go out of their way to protect a woman, especially if that's against another man. Potentially spreading the seed. And you have to realize that, even if women are bitter enemies and they fucking hate each other, women, oftentimes, they will protect each other against other men, especially if that man is physically unattractive. And, when it comes to dealing with women, as far as the hack mindset goes, being in good shape, being genetically fit, is ultimately going to get you the prize. Now, when it comes to biohacking, when it comes to hacking your own mind, soul, and body, well, not your soul. You don't hack your soul. You cleanse the soul. You turn that soul into something more of what you want. You think of your soul as some kind of just chunks of amalgamations, right? The clay mixed with iron, the clay mixed with metal. It's kind of weak. So what you do is you got to kind of filter out that clay. Do you want the clay? Do you want the clay that can be modeled, that can be absorbent, that can sort of, absorb the impact? Or do you want the iron that can be hard and heavy? It's hard. It's kind of, dense. It's strong. It can, kind of protect against the blows. It can cut. But it's kind of heavy. What do you want that soul to be? As far as hacking your mind and body, technology's out there. There's so much insight and wisdom these days. There's all kinds of stuff out there. You got to do your research, though. And I promise you that with the right mindset comes the right results. That's ultimately what it comes down to, guys. If I've gone a bit jibber-jabbering, if I've repeated myself a lot, that's because I am intentionally trying to get this through, because I know a lot of you guys out there need help, and that's it.